Space. The final frontier. In 1835, the Sun published 6 articles. Not that sun, not that sun, not the sun you abandoned 16 years ago. Yeah, that sun. 16 years has really been that long, wow. So what's the moon hoax? And no, I'm not talking about 1969. That happened. We can test it. There's science. Science, motherfucker. How does it work? Well, it works. Anyway, in 1835, it didn't work, like, at all. There was a big problem in astronomy especially. Basically, everyone was super religious. Jesus was popping off. It was the time to be him. It was his year. How so? Well, it was a common belief among astronomers that every single planet had life on it. Their core reasoning for this was the idea that God wouldn't just create a planet. He has to have a use for it, and he put creatures on it to appreciate what he has created. In comes a guy named Richard Locke. He was related to John Locke's uncle, but that didn't stop him from using that clout, that John Locke clout, to getting good with Edgar Allan Poe. Now, Richard Locke was not only an editor for Edgar Allan Poe, but he was also an editor for The Sun. Now, Richard didn't like everyone just assuming that every planet had creatures on it because Jesus. He thought that was kind of like a shortcut. So he set out to write 6 papers making fun of the fact that everyone believed this. The 6 papers, today known as the Great Moon Hoax of 1835. The articles first got published on the 25th of August, 1835. And all the articles claimed that they were getting their information from previous articles published in Scotland. By who? The paper claimed that these findings were by Sir John Herschel, an astronomer at the time, as well as Andrew Grant, who is not even a real person. Things you can get away with before the internet, just making shit up. Oh my, I guess people still do that, just... Now, the articles claimed that Herschel was in South America and had made a state-of-the-art... Oh my god, I'm forgetting words today. Telescope. Telescope was the word I was trying to think of. And using this telescope, he was able to see aliens on the surface of the moon. While looking at the moon, he not only saw beavers that stood on 2 legs, unicorns, deer, and small buffalo, as well as plants and flowers, but also bat people. I'm not joking. Bat people, and not only bat people, but bat people who fornicated in public and made temples. But don't worry, they were also vegetarian for some reason. Now, this is complete bullcrap, but it's estimated that at the time 90% of New York believed in this. 90%. Why did they believe it? Well, because, like I said, astronomers have been preaching stuff like this for so long that when people saw it, they just assumed. As well as John Herschel was very well respected, so people just assumed that it was credible. No one looked more into it. In fact, other papers started publishing these stories, and The Sun, which was a penny paper and not very popular, became the most popular paper in New York. People all over the US and all over the world started believing that there was Batman on the moon, which is nuts until you realize that there is basketball players today that think the globe is flat. But that's great, that's what the public thought. But what did the real important people think? What did the rich people think? What did our main characters think? Rich Locke did not want this to be believed. It was completely satire. He thought people would read this paper and start going, yeah, that's dumb. Why would I think that there is Batman on the moon? Wow, I should really start thinking more critically about what our astronomers today are saying. But instead, they went, yep. So this really disappointed him, and he wanted to come out and say, hey, it's completely bullcrap. But the Sun was publishing it and was making a lot of money from it, so he really couldn't say anything, and he felt like he couldn't say anything. He probably could have, but I mean, he would have lost his job. John Herschel, the man who was originally credited with publishing these findings, originally found it quite humorous and was like, oh, that's funny, this guy's like poking fun of me, and it's obviously not true, but later became super annoyed because he kept getting people asking him questions who 100% believed in the hoax. On top of this, Locke's good friend Edgar Allan Poe got really annoyed with him because he said that it was complete copyright infringement from another work that Edgar had published that followed roughly the same idea, with life being on the moon. The ironic part is, even though Edgar Allan Poe is super famous and well known all over the world, I've never even heard of his fake moon story. And I'm sure if there was people that ever watched this video, they would go, oh, I knew that, or I don't even know where I was going with that one. I was just making noises. But we do know about Richard Locke's moon hoax, which is kind of funny because I had no idea who Richard Locke was. I still don't even really know who Richard Locke was, like, deeply. Like, I don't know who he was personally. Like I've seen pictures of him and I've heard his stories, but who was the man, you know? Who was he deep down inside? A tortured soul. Maybe. Possibly. Probably. I'm assuming. You would think that his career would have prospered after this, but very quickly Locke got really annoyed with the Sun because it was tabloid and he wanted to write more serious stuff. So he left and made his own paper called The New Era that focused on science, religion, and politics. And he did that for quite a while, but never got close to hitting the success he did with his moon hoax. I mean, convincing the whole world that there's Batman on the moon is pretty hard to top. So I mean, how do you live up to that expectation, honestly? By 1842, Locke had completely abandoned journalism. For the next 20 years, he was a customs house officer and utilized his connections in the Democratic Party of the United States, which is, I don't know, I'm Canadian. I don't know what your guys' parties are. It's one of them. It's the ass or the elephant. I don't know. Then in 1862, he went into quiet retirement, which he enjoyed for 9 years before passing away of natural causes, leaving behind a legend only later topped by insert joke here. Anyway, that's all I really want to talk about. Do your own research. There's sources down below, and yeah. Okay, you can go now. Deuces.